Hello friends, in this lecture we are going to see how we can do certain techniques to make archives of files and or folders. Now there are basically three techniques that are used in the industry, and I want to say in fact three, but from a certification point of view I should also mention the third one, which is cpio. This is not specifically used, but you must know how does it work. It stands for copying input and output. Another very important one which is widely used in the industry, and almost every administrator use it maybe on daily basis depending upon the task that he is performing, and that is known as tar. Third one is dd, and I'll tell you that what each one of these performs. So coming on to cpio, this is very limited in its functionality. It's just that we cannot do something like cpio and give it a file and folder, or maybe a list of files or a folder path, or maybe multiple folders, and it gives us output. No, it does not work like that. What happens is that we need to pass arguments from other commands to cpio. So what we can do is that, let's say if I give in a command ls, then definitely it will give us the output in shape of maybe files, if there are any files in that folder where I have run this command ls, or maybe there are any folders in there. So maybe these are the folders. So once that output is given, we can pass this output through pipe to this cpio, and based on that cpio can compress it and make one file that we can transfer to maybe tape medium or maybe to another device. Likewise, we can also use find command. If I give find and dot maybe or maybe a path, and I tell it that you need to give me the output of, let's say, all the files that have certain strings in them, or maybe all the files that have an extension of maybe mp3 or dot or doc, then all these files can be output of this find command can be passed on to cpio using this pipe, and then cpio will act upon it. Likewise, once we have got the file from cpio output, we cannot directly decompress it like cpio and pass in some switch and then it will get decompressed. No, we have to kind of take the input like in this way, that cpio, and take the input from, not from the standard input, but from a file, and based on that it will act upon and decompress it. So it's kind of, you can very well imagine that it's kind of limited in functionality, but as far as this is concerned, that you want certain function to be performed, and based on that it can compress it, that makes it a good choice in certain cases. So we'll see how we can do that. Next one is tar, which is pretty simple and straightforward. We simply give it the path of the folder or maybe even file, and it will compress all the files that we put on a line, or maybe all the files in the folder that we want to make or convert into one file. dd, which stands for, normally it is called as disk droid, or sometimes data destroyer as well, because this is such a powerful command. Once you execute it, it does not give you any warning, and it takes action on almost anything and everything. Like you can simply write, maybe if you have a partition, say SDA, and you have another partition, say SDB, so it can write on block devices as well. You can give this argument as an input, and let's say you wanted to give the argument as an output as SDC, but mistakenly you give in SDB. Now all the blocks of SDA will be written on to SDB. So very, very powerful utility which works on low level. It does not work as such on file systems. It works directly on disk blocks. So be careful that whatever you are passing as an argument to dd, you should be very much clear that what you are passing, because normally people do tend to make mistakes and corrupt their data. Another important thing regarding dd is that dd only works on files. So we cannot copy folders from one location to another using dd command. Like this one over here, even these devices, they are in a form of files in Unix or Linux environment. So we'll see how we can do that, and also we'll see that how we can use this dd command for securing our disks, like maybe erasing the data on the disk while we are trying to maybe disposing of our disk. So we'll see about that. So let's now head over to the terminal and see all these three commands in action. Alright, so here I am. I'm using Ubuntu at the moment, and I am in my home folder. If I do pwd, now if I show you the contents of the directory, we see that we have got one file and two folders, and in those two folders I've got two files. One is file 1 in ABC folder and the other one is in XYZ folder, and there is nothing much in the files. If I show you the contents of one of the files, let's say file 1, so it's just one line which says that this is file ABC, and likewise the contents of other directory in which there is another file by the name of file 1, it says that this file XYZ. So what I want is that all these files and directories, they should be archived using cpio command. So the way to do that is I can start off with the cpio, or rather I should start off with the find, and then I put in dot, which means that print everything in the current directory with the absolute directory paths. For example, if I press enter, we see that this information is printed out, that there is directory, then in that directory there is a file, and these are hidden files. So I want that this information, all this information that is being shown over here, it should be archived. So I do that, then I pass that output through a pipe and into the input of cpio command. Then I use the switch -o, which is to output the file or to archive a file, then a redirection switch, that the output should be redirected, the output of the cpio command, it should be redirected, let's say to my temp folder, and in my temp folder let's create a file by the name of let's say archive.cpio. Now once I do that, we'll see that a file will be created in archive.cpio which will contain these contents. So I press enter and it says that 27 blocks have been copied. So if I do ls-l/temp, we see that indeed there is a file by the name of archive.cpio. So if I come, or if I do rf-rf, you see I want to delete these files and folders, so I'm going to do rm-rf and let's say static. I'm sure that I'm in my home directory, so I do that and it's gone. Now let's say I want to recover this archive using cpio, so I do that cpio, then -I is the switch for extraction, and then the input that I want to take from is a file whose path is temp/archive.cpio. So I press enter and it says that these files are already created because these are the hidden files that are already present in the folder. But if I show you ls, we see that indeed these files and these folders have come up, and if I do ls-r to show the listing in recursive order, we see that not only folders are there but also files have also been put in respective folders. So we can see even the contents of the file. If I do cat abc and then file name, we see that indeed the files have been recovered. Now let's see how we can use the tar command to make either a directory or a number of files into one single file. So if I want to tar all these files and directories, I can do that using tar command, and then after that I use this switch which is cv, v is for verbosity. As the process gets done, it will show us the contents that are being put into the file. We can skip v as well if we want to, but let's just put in v so that we can see that what's going on, and then f, which is for file, and then we need to name the tar file. So let's call it archive.tar, and let's also put this file in temp folder tar, and after that whatever we want to archive. So let's just put in static and see if that works. So if I press enter, we see that it has indeed copied ABC. It shows us that ABC, then file, then this file and this file, they have indeed been copied to tar, archive.tar. Now if we have a look at that file, archive.tar, we see that it has got some contents and the size is 20.4 kilobyte. Now if we want to untar that file, or I should not say uncompress, rather unarchive that file, so I can do that by let's just go to that particular directory and I'll show you if we want to recover it over here. So let's just first go to that directory, and the path is cd temp. This is the file over here. So to untar it or to unarchive the contents, the command is tar -xvf. C is for archiving and X is for extraction, and then the name of the file, which is archive.tar. So once I do that and I do ls, we see that in this directory and this example.desktop and xyz, they have been created. Now if I come to my home directory, which is here, and I do a removal of all these files, and from here if I use the same command, let's say this one, I press, or I need to give the absolute path, which is temp and archive.tar, and if I press enter and do an ls, we see that the command where we executed the tar, it has taken the arguments from the absolute path which was in temp archive and have put the contents in the directory that from where I have run this tar command. So we see that our contents have come back. Similarly, if we have a number of files that we want to archive into a one file, then what we can do is that we simply type in tar -cvf and then the name of the file .tar, and afterwards the files that we want to compress. So we can type in like file 1, then file 2, and then file 3, and all these files will be archived in name.tar. Now let's head over to the last command, which was dd, or we cannot really name what does it stand for. Some people say that if you look at the Wikipedia page of dd, it says that IBM JCL dd command, which was data description, probably that is the concept behind dd. But quite frankly, I have not found any reliable source which specifically mentions about the usage of dd, that why, or the acronym, that what it stands for. So just remember that dd is a powerful command which copies from block level to another device or maybe to another file, and also it does not work on directories, rather we have to give the file. So let's first try to use dd command to copy the content which is in ABC. There is a file in ABC by the name of file 1. So let's do that. The syntax is dd, and afterwards I type in input file, which is in ABC folder, and the file is file 1, and then the output file where we want that file to be printed or maybe create a new file, and let's just call it in our home folder, which I am where I am at the moment, and let's call this file as let's say dd file 1. Now once I press enter, it should create a file by the name of dd file whose contents will be that of file 1. So I press enter and it says that one record was in and one record was out and 17 bytes were copied. So if I do ls, we see that a dd file has been created, and if I do a cat on dd file, we see that indeed the contents are the same as that of file 1 in ABC folder. Now this was a very basic example of how we can use DD. A bit more complex example would be like if we are using DD and we want to copy disk image from one of the maybe partitions or maybe complete disk. So we can do that by typing in, let's say, dev SDA, if that is our drive or hard disk, and copy it into a completely different hard drive that could be SDB. And if I press enter, then all the contents of SDA, no matter how many partitions are there, they will all be printed like just like an image onto SDB. But of course SDB should be having of the same size or maybe greater than that of SDA. So likewise, if we have got CD image that we want to burn on a separate CD drive or maybe on USB, we can do that by typing in the, let's say, cd.image if we have got that image file, and likewise give the output path. Other thing that we can do using DD is, let's say if we have got a drive and we want to kind of destroy it. So what we can do is we can zeroize it. It's called zeroization. It does not put anything in that particular device, but it just deletes the contents and puts zeros in there. So we can do that by typing in, let's say, input file, and after that, and before I do that, let me just show you this thing. Let's say, let's zeroize this DD file. At the moment it has got contents which says that this is file ABC. So to zeroize it, let's say if I type in dev and then 0, this is the special file that is placed in dev folder, and then afterwards the output file is DD file. And after that I can also give certain arguments. For example, what should be the block size and how many blocks should be copied, and other arguments that you can see using the manual page of DD command. So if I press enter, and you see I did not mention any switch, that how many counts should be there. So it started to copy, and the copy rate was, look at this rate, 156 megabyte per second, and only in couple of seconds 622 megabyte were copied. So onto this file, DD file, and they're all zeros. So if I do ls-l now, we see that indeed DD file has been created and its size is 622 megabytes. So it's another way that you can create large files on your system if you want to test certain things. If I want to make a small file, let's say, so I put in count. By default it's 512 kilobyte, I believe. So if I put in count is equal to 1, that only one block with data zeros should be put in DD file. So if I do that and I press enter, 512 bytes. So 512 bytes are copied into this DD file, and if I do ls-l again, we see that indeed there are 512 bytes. And if I do a cat, that shows the contents of this DD file, we see that there is nothing in there. It does not show us anything, but the size is there. So definitely there is something in the file, but it's not viewable by this concatenated command. If I do it again, or maybe if I do more DD file, we see that it does show us a blank space, but there is nothing visible for our very own eyes. From security perspective, it would be great if we want to erase the data that we first put in 0 into that particular drive or file, and afterwards we use another command which is like not only that we zeroize the data, because you see current disk structures, there is possibility that even if we remove all the data which was written earlier, it can be recovered. So not only that we zeroize the data, but also we put another layer of data on top of that, so that it would be really difficult to recover the data. And the way to do that is that we first zeroize the contents, and then afterwards we use the urandom generated numbers in that particular block or maybe device. At the moment I'm using this DD file again, and let's see if I press enter with a count of 1 that what data is put into this DD file. If I do more of DD file or maybe cat DD file, we see that this garbage data has been put into this DD file. Likewise, if there had been a real drive like maybe USB or maybe other floppy drive, you can first zeroize it so that all that previous data is removed, and afterwards you put in this random data so that it will be really hard if you want to dispose of that hard disk or drive. So that's all there is to it. We have seen that how we can use cpio or copy in out function to archive the files and the directories. We have also seen a very handy tool which is tar, to make tar balls that we can maybe put on the tape drives, which we do not use nowadays anyways. It has been used extensively in the past. And lastly, we have seen very powerful command which is dd. I hope you have learned from this video, and I would like to thank you for viewing.